keep your diet fairly clean, because what you put inside your body is going to dictate how you feel.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
This episode of Spartan Up is presented by Trifecta. Unbox your best self with the food, coaching, and community support you need to reach your goals. Trifecta delivers delicious, micro-balanced meals directly to your door, no matter your diet. Clean, keto, paleo, vegan, or vegetarian, Trifecta is your nutrition partner for your best self.
Joe Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan and the Spartan Up podcast. I got a good buddy of mine on, Dave Colina. This guy is an animal. Did I pronounce your name right? All these years I've been calling you Dave Colina. Is that the right pronunciation?
It's Colina, actually.
Colina. All right. Well, maybe we're not that close. But anyway, we met out on a course years ago, running. Dave likes to do the hard stuff. He's a big CrossFit athlete. And what's interesting about Dave, what I'd like to talk about, is he's in the thick of it as far as business goes. And I've been saying it for decades that you go out and you do something hard. You run a couple of 100 miles, you bike across the country. Yes, it's tough, but it's not like a business. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And Dave, I'd love to talk to you about that.
No, man, absolutely. Nobody talks about that as much as they should. So I'm game.
Yeah, you think if people knew how hard business was, you think less people would do it?
I do. And I say that with a lot of humility because I've seen a lot more of the thick of it probably in my time at O2 than you ever hear about before you start a business or even after you start a business. Very few people openly talk about just the shit that goes on behind the scenes, which I think is a shame.
This weekend I was in Spain. I was giving a speech to 200 millionaires, young folks, 25, 37-year-olds, all getting after it. A lot of females. Shouldn't be surprising, but it is surprising to me to see so many, and it's awesome to see so many young girls that are out there kicking butt, taking names. But at the end of the day, when I dug deeper, forcing them to meet me for morning workouts, the guys and the girls, and only convincing 20% of them. Mm-hmm. What I heard over and over was how hard, how hard it is. It's one thing they project. It's one thing we project as entrepreneurs to the outward world, how great it is.
Right.
Right. And we might not even do it like consciously. I think people perceive it to be great.
Right.
But man, I had a job once. It was so easy.
Yeah, regular 9 to 5.
Regular 9 to 5 was so easy.
I know. You got somebody telling you what to do, right? It's like, oh, that's easy. All I have to do is what I'm told. It takes all the difficult decisions out of it. And it's funny you say the point about what we project versus what actually happens. I do a good deal of guest lecturing on entrepreneurship at CU Boulder, and I always start my lecture with, here's like the Instagram friendly version of O2, the official sports drink of the CrossFit Games and sold in several thousand gyms across the country and et cetera, a multi-million-dollar business. And then the next slide is here's what that really looks like, right? And it starts with a picture. You've probably seen this photo of a young man before World War I, and then like 3 years later, he looks, 50 years older. That's the picture that I lead with. And then I get into how many crises we've had, how many times, we've almost run out of money, how many times we've had to lay people off. And that's what that really looks like,
No doubt about it. I mean, I watched it first time. I watched it growing up with my dad. My dad was an Uber entrepreneur. He was a maniac and always on the phone. This was before cell phones. So there were cords attached to the wall.
Oh, so that's where you get it from, huh?
That's where I get it from. It was nonstop work, 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 think, make lefts, make rights, and but always under tremendous pressure, and everything was always going wrong.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That sounds about right. That sounds like my life. It sounds like your life. It sounds like every other founder's life that I know, right?
Yeah. So if you're giving advice to those entrepreneurs out there that are listening, right? What would you say?
Well, I think, some of the conversations that you and I have had just since we, first met each other are really reflect the types of bonds that you have with somebody after you do something hard with them, right? You run a Spartan race together or you do an ultra marathon. Like that's a different kind of pain and suffering that you go through with somebody. And that forges a really lasting bond and a lasting friendship. And you can, I think, replicate that just by having the open and honest conversations around how tough things get, with other founders, right? You and I we've sweat together and we've shared stories together. And I think that, it's been our own little form of therapy sometimes. And it just, not only does it bring you closer, but I've gotten a ton of ideas from you that have really benefited my business. And hopefully I've been able to provide value to, to other founders that I talk about this stuff with. And it's just being open and vulnerable with other people. Forget the shit that you put out on Instagram, but get real for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know who I was telling today. I was telling Ernst and Young. I was so bold to tell Ernst and Young. I said I can double your business in a year, and that's a giant
Wow,
business.
jeez.
I said I can double your business guaranteed in 1 year if every one of your sales associates, which must be like 40,000 people, right? If every one of them had a potential client that they were recruiting. Mm-hmm. And they went out and did something hard with them.
Totally agree.
Your business would double. I said, for the 90 days leading up to the Spartan or the Tough Mudder or whatever it is you're taking, like you'd be talking every single day.
Right.
And for the 90 days post, and then it would be a story for the rest of your life. And that client would become a friend.
100% agree.
Right. So it's so simple. I said, instead of golf and afternoon lunch and all the things that anybody could do, you got to do something hard. Mm-hmm. Why were you so crazy about creating a drink? Like everybody
I ask myself that question all the time. I think that like a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly first-time entrepreneurs, you look to scratch your own itch, and when I tell the O2 origin story, I always start with how I sort of cut my entrepreneurial teeth opening a nonprofit charter high school in Columbus called Cristo Rey, which I do view as my foray into entrepreneurship. But I still see my venture into O2 as the first real entrepreneurial journey that I took, because at that point, you're creating something from nothing, and it's real dollars and real profits or not. It's just a little bit more real when it's your own thing versus opening a chapter of somebody else's thing. And after I exited, the Cristo Rey school journey, and that school got off the ground, which I'm proud to say we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary this May, which is pretty cool. 99% high school graduation rate in a part of town that usually has 30 to 40%. After that, I was like, man, this is great. Like, I want to build stuff and I want to do that for a living. What do I wish existed that doesn't? And I was pretty active in my, my fitness life and my personal life and, my professional life. And so as a result of that, I was sucking down a lot of Gatorade and a lot of Red Bull and a lot of other stuff that I knew wasn't good for me, like Gatorade and Red Bull, just high sugar, high unnatural ingredients, just high in everything except for what you truly need. And I knew enough to know that probably wasn't great for me. So I ended up partnering with a physician from Ohio State's hospital to create a healthier version of all the Gatorade that I was drinking, basically. And I remember thinking, man, this is like, why hasn't anybody done this yet? It's so easy. It's so straightforward. Just remove all and make it taste better, and it's become very clear why nobody's done it. It's hard to do that. It's hard in such a competitive industry as consumer packaged goods, much less, the hydration, which is dominated by Gatorade and Powerade and others, it's hard to really compete in that space unless you have a special angle, which thankfully, through partnerships like CrossFit and others, potentially Spartan, we've been able to gain. But it's really, really hard. Making the product is the easy part, right? And O2 was a tough product to make. It's awesome. But everything that comes after that is the hard part.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big believer in this concept. I say fire, ready, aim.
Yeah,
Right.
right, right.
Yeah. Because if you were to get ready and you were to aim, you'd probably never fire. Like if you knew, and looked through every detail and all the things that had to be done and how you were going to edge out Coca-Cola, like you'd
Right.
never.
Totally. 100%, man. And it's almost like there's no use, because any plan you make is probably going to go to hell anyway. But
Yeah.
it's just, you got to think on your feet and just get after it.
I noticed lately in the airports, I fly a lot, that Coca-Cola must be making deals with all the airports and Hudson News or whatever, because there's no more choices on drinks. Now it's Smart Water, Minute Maid apple juice, and a bunch of junk I don't drink.
Yeah, right, which is really unfortunate. And I think that's kind of the name of the game with respect to the larger brands, is that they'll go into a venue, whether it's an airport or a university, and buy out an exclusive contract. And in exchange for a high amount of dollars, those venues will agree to only sell their products. But I think what's good for us is people are getting a lot smarter. They're getting a lot smarter about what they consume, where they buy things, how they buy things. And O2 is sold in several thousand gyms across the country. And that's the point of Sweat. And many of those gyms are CrossFit gyms or DECA gyms or other gyms where people know what they should consume and what they shouldn't. And Gatorade's never going to be found in a place like that. Powerade, same deal. Body Armor, same deal. So we're able to get into these places where not only do people sweat, but they're also pretty educated about what they put inside their bodies. And it's a welcome change for people versus the junk they see at the airport.
You've got goals, and we can help you reach them. Trifecta is an immersive weight loss program built on science-backed principles that actually work. Step 1, answer a few lifestyle questions. Then set your goal weight, and we'll give you a personalized plan on how to reach it. Step 2, the Trifecta app is like a virtual coach in your pocket. Look out for daily education and nutrition tips as you begin gaining momentum on your journey. Step 3, let Trifecta be your personal chef and dietitian too. Eliminate the guesswork and kitchen burnout with pre-portioned macro-balanced meals delivered to your door. They're crafted using organic ingredients with different meals arriving each week. Simply unwrap, heat up, then eat. Step 4. You can change your plan anytime, or pause or skip weeks. Hitting a roadblock on your journey? We have a plan for that too. We'll arm you with ways to break through plateaus and get right back on track. All that's left to do is crush your goals. Get started today.
So you're in the middle of the fight. You're basically in the Coliseum. You're Russell Crowe. You've been stabbed in the lungs, and you don't know if you're going to get out alive or not. How do you get through each day?
Well, we went through that pretty severely in October, and this. You and I were lockstep. You were helping me out with this quite a bit when we had been working on our first venture-backed fundraise for O2 all summer with a partner in Germany. And it was so much time and energy and work and dollars had been spent in putting this fundraise together. And it was for a meaningful amount of money. This was for $10 million, which was far outweighed, the amount of money we'd raised, in one time before that. And the deal was papered, and, all the legal diligence was done. All the business diligence was done. And really, for no good reason, this fund pulled out the week that it was supposed to send money to our bank account, citing, the war in Ukraine, downturn economy, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that could have been identified, several months ago before we really started all the work. And that was a huge body blow. I've seen plenty of crises at O2, but that was the first one where I thought, oh shit, we might not make it, because we had staffed up. We were spending money on marketing. as if the fundraise had already closed. We spent money on staff as if the fundraise had already closed, because the partner was giving us positive reassurances all the way up to the moment they didn't. And we were forced into a position, which I now look back on like mini crises, as I'm glad it happened because we got better for it. But we were forced into a position of having to really reevaluate everything within the business. And I think it's so easy for us as entrepreneurs, because we get so caught up in the day to day, and because we have a never ending to-do list, we rarely take a step back and think, okay, if I were building this from the ground up, from scratch, based on everything that I've learned so far, how would I go about building it? Forget what my business looks like today, because in our case, it was largely irrelevant because it was about to go under. But if I could take, the several years of learning that I had and start something from scratch, what would I do differently? And so that led us to really rationalizing our business. We, like a lot of other businesses, had to go through our own rounds of layoffs, which was tough because everybody was a great person that we had to let go. But it also forced us to really focus on what we do best. And it gave us a realization that, we really have to do a better job of letting people know on our packaging and in our branding what the product is, how great it is. Because right now, with what was then our can that was in the market, it just didn't do a very good job of that. And this was a moment where we could really reflect on that, because everything was on the table. And we said, okay, we gotta get this project over the finish line to rebrand, in addition to rationalizing our business. And that's where we focused for, the 3 to 6 months that followed, was just laser focus on what we do well and doing a better job of communicating what our product is. And here we are, you and I were talking in May, this happened in October, and all that stuff is done. And I couldn't be more grateful for it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And I love what you said. Take a step back and think about, what would I do? And as you were saying it, I was thinking about our business. It's hard to do. It's hard to do. And you have to be forced in many cases into doing it, which is what you were forced to do. We were forced to do something similar with COVID. It was still is a lingering nightmare. But I may actually go through that exercise this weekend. Now that you said it, I may go through and say, okay, we're starting from scratch, knowing what we know now.
Right.
What would it look like?
Right. Like, think about how many things you do differently. Think about how many mistakes we've made since the starting of the journey. It would be crazy to think, oh, okay, if I was doing this all over again from scratch, I would do things exactly the way that we're doing them today. That's nuts, right? Because you inherit, there's so much baggage just associated with having a track record. Some of it's good, some of it's not. But when you're forced to look at a theoretical exercise like that, around starting from scratch based on what you know now, you're forced to look at a lot of things that you probably want to do differently or don't wish exist in your business. And it's like, all right, well, why is that happening now? Like, why don't I change that? And there's often no good reason that you don't change it.
Yeah. And so what's the future look like?
Well, we're laser focused on our gym business, which you and I have talked about. That's a business that does really, really well for us. We've got, thousands of gyms across the country that are selling O2 to their members. And we're very, very excited about this rebrand that we've done recently. I know it's kind of nerdy, but I love talking about packaging, and the look of the O2 can really, truly, for the first time in our history, reflects how great the liquid inside of it is. And so our focus has been on mirroring everything that we do consumer facing, getting everything aligned with that aesthetic, which it now is. If you go to drinko2.com, you can see the new can, the new packaging, the website's redesigned, everything's redesigned. And those new cans are in the market and they're starting to hit shelves. So we're really focused on making the most of that opportunity while we continue to get into more and more gyms, or more and more places that people who go to gyms shop. As you know, we're in larger conversations with larger partners. We'll probably leave them unnamed for this podcast, but places where people who work out tend to go to get drinks like ours or supplements like yours, and we're pretty stoked about those opportunities too.
All right, let's do this. What 3 things would you recommend an entrepreneur do every day to keep sane? 3 things. Could be
Yep.
fitness related, could be mental related, could be business related.
Yep.
To keep their shit together.
I would say you and I are probably pretty closely aligned on these. I would say break a sweat, work out, do some form of exercise first and foremost. That's been incredibly therapeutic and beneficial for me over the years. And, a lot of times when people start to work for scrappy startups, or some founders fall into this trap, their exercise regimen goes to hell. And so people have asked me, how have you managed to maintain yours? And it's because I have to. And I think a lot of people have to, otherwise they'd go insane. So I do CrossFit, I do yoga, I'll run the occasional Spartan race. I did a diesel day, a 24-hour workout in October. And so stuff like that, get sweating, get moving. And that makes everything about the day more manageable for me. So that's number 1. Number 2, on the opposite end of that spectrum, I've got a pretty consistent morning meditation schedule that I stick to. It's only 10 minutes, but I do it every day. And that makes me feel pretty good about how I start my day, start it with a level head. And then the third thing that comes to mind, I'm going back and forth between, keep some form of journal, whether it's handwritten or, an electronic version, or probably more relevant is keep your diet fairly clean, because what you put inside your body is going to dictate how you feel. And if you want to feel your best in order to perform your best, you've got to be eating somewhat healthy. I think it's really easy to, I'm so busy, I'm just going to order some fast food or some delivery or whatever, but that's a trap, man. So I would say take the time to put the right stuff inside your body. And then maybe bonus item number 4 is keep a journal. But what would your answer to that question be?
Definitely break a sweat. Definitely cold shower. Definitely eat healthy, more water than anything else, right? The closer you can get to water, I think you'd agree, the better. Get to bed early. Mm-hmm. You basically have to treat yourself like an Olympian. Like you're going for gold. Anybody in business is going for gold. You got to treat yourself like an Olympian. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, especially like just a decade ago, like the correlation between was like, let's drink and smoke and stay up late if you're in business. That makes no sense.
That sounds horrible to me now, right? It's like, that sounds just totally unproductive the next day.
Yeah.
The cold shower thing I like, and I like that quite a bit personally. I take cold showers fairly regularly. I'm not as up to date on all the science behind it. I know there's plenty of science behind it. But the main reason I like it is because it forces you to do something that you don't want to do. Like, I've been taking cold showers for years and I've never once looked forward to hopping in that cold shower. But once you do it, it's like, okay, good. I did something today that I didn't want to do. And it's exercising that discipline muscle,
What's great about the cold shower for me is it forces me to get hot before I get in the cold shower.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So the hot workout followed by the cold shower. That's a life hack right there.
Yeah. Well, you're awesome. How do people find you?
Drinko2.com is the website. My Instagram is @DTCOLINA, and O2's Instagram is O2 Hydration.
People are going to be able to join you out at Fort Carson this summer, Spartan Race.
I mean, that's where you and I were together last summer.
That's right.
Let's make a reunion happen.
Let's make a reunion. Get out there. Get with the military, the veterans. That's an awesome race. Maybe you should do something the day before. Run up the stairs.
Oh, right. You told me about that.
Yeah.
That sounds really miserable. Maybe you and I should do it together.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, you're awesome.
All right, man. It's good to see you.
We started Trifecta with a very singular mission: to get America into shape. We were really interested in launching a business that was able to actually directly help people. That happened to be us helping with the chronic disease crisis that's caused by nutrition. We make it with organic ingredients macro balanced meals, fully biodegradable packaging.
Trifecta's here. Oh yeah!
We have an amazing company mission to help get America back into shape.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up Podcast.